And today we have the opportunity to speak with Darin Gerdes, Professor of Business in Charleston Southern University, also of YouTube channel Professor Gerdes Explains. Hello and welcome. I would like to ask you about the fight against Russian propaganda in the US in particular, because we have this Department of Justice investigation with Tenet media being the center of this scandal and major United States-based influencers being involved in these manipulations. What can you say about this? Was it unexpected?
Yeah, so it appears that the Russians have actually learned and grown organically in the way that they've done this propaganda. They've been doing the same kind of intrusion into multiple countries. Like they've done these kinds of things in Europe, but they've done it in the United States. A great book on this subject is Putin's Playbook by Rebecca Koffler, where she's talking about what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to sow division and discord wherever they can. And they've grown from, Igor in his St. Petersburg cubicle trying to sow disinformation to actually getting authentic users involved, and that changed the game. That's very, very different than what it was before, because it has more credibility when it comes from an authentic user. The question now is whether that authentic user really believed that and they were just pushing that narrative, or whether that authentic social media influencer was being influenced by Russia or just on the Russian payroll, or we just don't know which this is.
And actually, that really frightens me because, it's natural. It was natural involvement, like a natural integration of Russian propaganda narratives into influencers, people and guys from YouTube and Instagram, Facebook who were making content and who are making content. Right now, they are claiming that they were victims of an information operation, but clearly they were distributing Russian narratives for money. They were paid officially for that.
Yeah, so they get brand sponsorships, and they should have known that the money was disproportionate. I saw Tim Pool being interviewed by Ben Shapiro. By the way, both of them are conservatives. I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative who fully supports Ukraine, though. I'm the old Reagan-style conservative that was looking at Ukraine, going, "Of course we have to support them." But there's this branch within the Republican Party that's grown up into a kind of an isolationist wing. This is the Trump MAGA side of the party. And even like yesterday, I was talking about this on my own show. It's Professor Gerdes Explains. I was showing how Lauren Chen, a week before the invasion, was carried in RT talking about how those neocons, the like Reagan conservatives, myself, they just want war. It wasn't Putin's fault. It was that they are pushing for war, and you better expect to be called unpatriotic. So that branch was already growing. Tucker Carlson was already kind of moving down this line. And so there are voices that have this position, and I can't detect how influenced they are by Russia, or how much it's their position and it's bolstered by Russia, wittingly or unwittingly. But they are pushing Russian narratives one way or another. That's absolutely clear.
And do you see a way, maybe a natural way to counter this? We know that the best counter propaganda is not allowing the enemy propaganda in to sow discord into your country. And it's actually Kremlin's favorite way, sowing discord. Not everything is so obvious, but still, what do you think? How can you as an influencer, we as a channel, other government officials in the US counter this subversive activity of Russia?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm not sure how you can do it, because it's okay. So we have a very free speech culture in the United States, as you're well aware, and within those parameters, it's hard. You have to have truth beating falsehood. But if you look at mainstream media, most of the media is not even covering what's going on in the war in Ukraine. There's a couple dozen of us YouTubers that are constantly every day, covering the events in the war in Ukraine, and that's let alone Russian propaganda and trying to counter that. So it's a pitched battle, but I just don't know how you do it. The irony here is that it's because RT was pushed off the air that then it went underground. So it was, so you can still find RT, like you can just RT.com, or you can go to Rumble and you can find RT videos. Like you can, but it's not carried on YouTube and it's not carried on major carriers like it was before. And so they figured, okay, we can't do it that way. Let's go through the social media. So it's actually harder now than it was before just because of that. So they've adapted and figured out how to still push their narratives. Um, I'm not sure how to answer that question. It's rough. But it needs to be addressed, and to not address it. And so I'm a proponent of showing what the Russian media narrative is, and then debunking it. Like that's what I spend my time, much of my time doing on my channel, is trying to show you, like, this is what Solyov is saying, this is what he's actually saying, or why he's saying it. So that way it becomes kind of an inoculation. Um, but to answer your question, it's going to be miserable because you can't tell who's within the Republican Party. You can't tell who is saying something that aligns with Russia because it just is what they already believe, or just because it aligns with Russia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a complicated question to be sure, but in my opinion, what you and me can do is debunk those narratives and
Yep.
myths on YouTube channel. UATV English is a fully digital platform main on YouTube, and we have to work on that. We have to like address this question once again and again and again, because the government probably they're a little bit slow in reaction. But influencers, if some influencers repost Russian narratives, then we must repost pro-American, pro-Ukrainian, and anti-propaganda narratives. That's what I think.
No, you're spot on. You have to be able to answer those questions. Otherwise, they just get out into the ether. And I talk with people that I would consider pretty level headed all the time, that are spouting, without realizing it, essentially Russian talking points. Why should we be involved in this? Why should we, that's Ukraine, that's far away. We have our own problems. It's true, we have our own problems, but at the same time, this is important. This could become something this could overturn international order, become World War III, or what. We need to keep our eye on the ball here. And unless, like, so when this first broke, I was talking to a friend of mine. He's conservative, I'm conservative, and he was starting to go down that path. And he was saying, well, I don't want World War III. Me neither. I don't want World War III either. That's exactly why we need to be supporting Ukraine. So, at any rate, we have to be the counterbalance out there, and it's an uphill battle. But everything in Ukraine, in the Ukraine war, has been an uphill battle, right? I mean, think about your artillery, your other rockets, your personnel. Everything has been an uphill battle, and yet here we are, 900 some odd days later, in a 3 week special military operation. So we can do it.
Yeah, we have to answer asymmetrically. Just what has been happening for all these almost 3 years of this horrible full-scale war. Thank you, Mr. Gerdes. It is a great pleasure to have you here, professor of business in Charleston Southern University and also of YouTube channel Professor Gerdes Explains. Thank you very much.